Technology, India. Before starting this session, I welcome you, ma'am, on behalf of CPJ College to to be here and telling us about the insights, what you feel regarding the environmental sciences that you are into. A brief of ma'am that I would like to discuss with you all. Dr. Leena Singh is a distinguished academician and researcher with 20 plus years of expertise in environmental sciences. Is specializing in river ecology, biodiversity conservation, and integration of indigenous knowledge systems (IKS) into sustainable environmental management. She is dedicated to bridging of traditional ecological wisdom with contemporary scientific approaches to address climate resilience and biodiversity preservation. Dr. Singh has been instrumental in advancing IKS through faculty development programs under Malviya Mission Teacher Training Centers, that is MMT, MMTC, MMTCs, formerly UGC HRDC, and has actively participated in numerous national, international conferences and webinars on environmental conservation, policy making, and sustainable development. She has extensive teaching experience at the University of Delhi and other reputed institutions. Her research profile includes 22 plus publications in high impact journals, 7 book chapters with global publishers like Taylor and Francis, IGI Global, and numerous conference presentations. Ma'am has been the editor of Indian Knowledge Systems for Viksit Bharat 2047, a significant contribution highlighting India's traditional wisdom for a sustainable future. Ma'am has been regularly participating in various national and international conferences on environmental conservation and policy making and sustainable development. And she is continuing to shape environmental discourse by bridging ancient knowledge with modern science, contributing to India's vision for 2047. We welcome you, ma'am, wholeheartedly. And now we can start the session with you, ma'am. It is over to you, Leena, ma'am. Ma'am, you're not audible. Please unmute yourself.
Hope I
Yes,
am
ma'am,
audible.
now you can speak. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for a wonderful introduction. So today I'm here for a lecture basically on capacity building in governance for environmental policies. So today I will be speaking about capacity building in governance for environmental policies. So I'm not able to see my presentation. Is it okay?
Bhumika ma'am, please allow to share the screen.
Ma'am, it's visible, ma'am, now.
Visible. Okay, thank
Yes.
you. Thank you so much. So I'll start the introduction basically. So once again, a very good evening today. We will explore a critical but often overlooked aspect of the environmental protection, and that is capacity building in the governance. So what do we understand by capacity building? So any idea about capacity building, why we are talking about capacity building, and what has its relation with the environmental governance?
Ma'am, you can go in for the full screen review, full screen also.
So it is not full screen?
No, ma'am.
What I need to do?
You can go for the slideshow option with 100% view.
Okay. So for that, I'll open my presentation, isn't it? Yes, yes, yes.
By F5 also, by pressing F5.
F5, okay. Is it now? Ma'am, is it full screen now?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am, done.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. So we will be talking about what is capacity building. Before that, I'll just give you a brief introduction about the capacity building. That the capacity building, while the policies and the regulations are drafted with good intentions, their success depends on how effectively institution and the individual can implement them. In this session, we will discuss what capacity building means, why it is vital for environmental governance, the global and Indian policy frameworks, challenges, and the way forward. We will also be discussing various environmental policies at global, national, and regional level, and how the capacity building will help in the good implementation of these policies. So, the capacity building, as the statement states, that means developing and strengthening the knowledge, institution, resource to support effective environmental governance. It also helps in designing, implementing, and enforcing environmental policies, legal framework. It applies to individual as well as institution and the system involved in environmental management. Whatever the systems which are involved in environmental management, the good capacity building is going to help there. It will help government in the organization and the communities to address present challenges such as climate change, biodiversity loss, and the pollution. So, environmental challenges like climate change, pollution and biodiversity loss are global, but the solution is at the local level. अगर हम solution की बात करते हैं, तो the solution is local. So the problem we are facing climate change, but the solution for that cannot be universal. A country like US has a different solution. The India has a different solution. So we can say, and that we can do through capacity building. So governance, this require governance that is participatory, accountable, and effective. Governance is not just about government. So when we are talking about governance, it is not like that government. It includes each and every person. It includes the institution, it includes the civil society, communities, private sectors. Capacity building in this context means enhancing human resource, strengthening institutional framework, and ensuring access to technology and finance. With this, even the best design policy remains on paper. Without this, even the best design policy are only on the paper. So, what does individual capacity means? The individual capacity is for enhancing technical skills of policymakers such as scientists, NGOs, and community leaders. Training in environmental, they also provide training. That is when we are talking about environmental policies. So they will provide training in environmental law, climate diplomacy, impact assessment, and sustainable development practices. They are also helping institutional capacity, such as strengthening government agencies, regular bodies, and academic research institutions. Same, developing cross-sectoral coordination between ministries of environment, industries, agriculture, energy, and urban planning. They are also systematic in nature, means ki they will establish a legal policy and regulatory framework for environmental governance and will promote transparency, accountability, and stakeholder participation in decision making. So what are the various tools and approaches for implementation of this capacity building? So they are done through education and training program. So for official NGOs and governments and the communities, various education and training program are organized for better implementation through environmental impact assessment. So that is complete analysis of a project, policy, or plan, whether it is suitable to implement for our surrounding. So that is building capacity to conduct and monitor EIA, and after implementation, proper auditing and monitoring is also required. Through data research and technology, which means improving access to environmental data such as GIS, AI, and monitoring system. Then networking and partnership, which means engaging international organizations like United Nations Environment Program, UNDP, World Bank, IPCC, civil society, and private sector, and the policy instruments like economic incentives, like green taxes, emission trading systems, and command and control mechanism. So these all things are going to help in better planning and implementation. For example, in India, environmental governance is supposed to be supported by a robust policy and legal framework. The National Environmental Policy 2006 integrates sustainable development goals, and there are certain other policies also which we will be discussing in the later part of our presentation. So now, what is the importance of environmental governance? So we will be talking about why governance matter in environmental protection. So what is the role of capacity building in environmental governance? So first of all, as the statement suggests, that it ensures policy coherence and effective law enforcement. So what does this mean? This means that we are facing various environmental challenges. So, and they are global in nature. When we are talking about pollution, it is global in nature. We are talking about climate change, it is global in nature. The loss of biodiversity, again, it is global in nature. And as I suggested, that the solution is going to be not for them will be a local one. This requires governments that is participatory, accountable, and effective. Governance is not just about government, it includes institutions, civil society, communities, and private sectors. And they are going to strengthen the participatory governance, giving communities a role in resource management. It will also enhance adaptation and resilience against climate change and their impact. It will promote sustainable development, and it will build capacity for international negotiation. For example, Paris Agreement, SDGs, Convention for Biological Diversity, etc. So what is the way forward which we are looking for? How it is going to strengthen? So yeah, it will be facing challenges also. But if we talk about what is going to be the way forward for the capacity building for environmental governments, so we can say that it will strengthen multi-level governance, whether it is local, national, or global. So it will integrate indigenous knowledge with modern science. So that is invest in education and research for environmental innovation. It will also strengthen local governments like Panchayati Raj and all. It will invest in green skills and youth capacity. So it will help in making the planet green through various green skills. It will enhance monitoring through digital tools. It will help international cooperation to promote South-South and North-South cooperation for technology, knowledge exchange, etc. So if we see that we need an integrated approach, indigenous ecological wisdom like sacred groups, water harvesting, and organic farming, which I will be talking in the second session, where I am talking about indigenous knowledge system and how it will be protecting or conserving our biodiversity, must be blended with modern science. Strengthening Panchayati Raj institution and urban local bodies ensure action on the ground. Young people must be trained in green skills, renewable energy, waste management, biodiversity conservation. Digital tools like AI, IoT, and the blockchain can help in transparent monitoring. And finally, the global cooperation is very important. Not just North-South, but South-South knowledge sharing. India can play a very important role. So as I have told you that the second part of this presentation will be regarding environmental policies, as we are talking about the capacity building in governance for environmental policy. So it is very important to get acquainted with the various environmental policies at global level, at national level, and even at local level. So the next part which I am taking up is we will be discussing each and every, so that you are aware that these are the environmental policies present and how they and what are the major features of these environmental policies. Many of us are not aware about that these environmental policy exist and how they are important. So we will be talking about here in the about the various global, first of all, global environmental policies and their framework. So environmental policies are closely interlinked. As I have told earlier also, that policies provide a framework for action. Without the institutional and human capacity to implement them, they remain ineffective. So if there is no institutional or human capacity to implement them, so they are only on the paper. So we are not even aware. So awareness is a major role to for the implementation of these policies. Our session will explore how policies from global agreements like Paris Accord to India's national environmental policy need strong governance structure, trained institution, and skilled human resource to succeed. So, okay. So we'll start with the global environmental policies and the capacity need. So the first one we are talking about is about the Stockholm Declaration. So what is this Stockholm Declaration was launched in 1972, and this is the first major international framework on environment. It was adopted by United Nations Conference on Human Environment in Stockholm, Sweden. And it is the first global initiative to address environmental concern at the international level. So there were very important decisions taken in this year. So in that declaration, it was the Stockholm Declaration was also included there. So it was the first time when the world finds out that our environment is at a threat. So we need to create awareness if we want to survive. So outline 26 guiding principles emphasizing the right to clean and healthy environment, sustainable use of resources, and international cooperation. It also recognizes the interdependence of environment and development, how the environment is dependent upon the development. And it is not like that we need to stop the development, but we have to create some coexistence between them. So linking ecological sustainability with human progress. So it can be done through ecological sustainable development and also the need of human progress. It can lead to the creation of United Nations Environment Program, whose headquarters is in Nairobi, to coordinate global environmental action. And it has the beginning of modern international environment law and inspired the celebration of World Environment Day on June 5 each year. So the credit goes to United Nations Environment Program for celebrating World Environment Day to make people aware and concerned about the environment on 5th June of every year. So the next global environmental policy is Rio Declaration 1992, which is also known as Earth Summit. So it was adopted at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in 1992. It expanded on the Stockholm Principle and placed sustainable development at the center of the global discussion. It has introduced key principles such as precautionary approach, polluter pathway principles, and public participation in decision making. Agenda 21. What is Agenda 21? It is an action plan in which 21 agenda was supposed to be completed by 2022, but due to COVID, we were not able to meet those agendas. So now the goal has been increased, and now we have to achieve these 21 agendas by 2030. So that is the part of Sustainable Development Goals, SDG goals. So these agenda are the part of SDG goals. So Agenda 21, a comprehensive global action plan for sustainable development. This led to the adoption of 3 major conventions, that is UNFCCC, that is for climate change. The full form of UNFCCC is United Nations Framework for Convention on Climate Change. Then CBD, that is Convention on Biological Diversity. And then it is UNCCD, that is United Nations Convention on United Nations Convention on Climate and Desertification. So how the climate change, how is leading to desertification also. So this is whole of the program deals with either climate change or the biodiversity. So they emphasize that economic growth and environmental protection must go hand in hand. Next is Kyoto Protocol. I hope you people have heard about that. This is the first international agreement under UNFCCC that was created an international treaty for global warming and climate change. So the main objective was to reduce the greenhouse gas emission. So this was adopted again under UNFCCC. It was the first legally binding treaty requiring developed countries to reduce greenhouse gas emission. Set a target to cut emission was an average of 5.2% below 1990 level during the first commitment period, that is between 2008 to 2012. It introduced various flexible mechanisms like emission trading, clean development mechanism, and joint implementation. So here I would like to tell you about what is emission trading, what is clean development mechanism, that is also known as CDM, and what is joint implementation. So when we are talking about emission trading, so that is the country which has generated less emission are able to sell their emission through trading to the countries who have exceeded their limits. So that is emission trading. So that can also be called carbon credits. So they can earn carbon credits, which can further help them in earning emission reduction unit, which is represented as ERU. Then the next is clean developmental mechanism, CDM. What is CDM? So CDM is a very flexible mechanism to invest in emission reduction projects. So there are the countries, basically for the developed countries, they can invest in emission reduction projects. For example, they can plan a सोलर पैनल्स लगा सकते हैं या कुछ और भी किसी कंट्री में इन्वेस्ट करके सोलर एनर्जी को प्रमोट कर सकते हैं. सो दे इन दिस व्हाट दे डू कि the developing countries earn credits known as certified emission reductions, CERs, by implementing various green practices or investing in renewable energies in the developed countries. So this is known as CDM, Clean Development Mechanism. And there is joint implementation. So what is joint implementation? Which allows the various developed countries to earn emission reduction unit from the projects in another countries to help and meet their targets. So these were also introduced in Kyoto Protocol 1997. The Kyoto Protocol faced challenges as some major emitters like United States did not ratify and developing countries had no binding targets. So marked a significant step in making climate action enforceable in international law. So the Kyoto Protocol, after Kyoto Protocol was replaced by Paris Agreement 2015. So it was adopted by COP21 in Paris. So what is COP? COP is Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework of Convention of Climate Change. So UNFCCC is, the COP comes under UNFCCC only. So the 21 Paris, so adopted at COP21 in Paris under UNFCCC it is the most important accord on climate change, which is also known as Paris Agreement. Now, which we are following for the mitigation of climate change is Paris Agreement only. And And under that, there are various conferences conducted, and we are taking various decisions how to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and how to keep our temperature between 1.5 degrees centigrade, below that is 2 degrees centigrade. If it reaches 2 degrees centigrade, it will be a very it will not be possible to make it a comeback. So now we are between 1.2 to 1.5 degrees centigrade. So we have to remain in that only. So that aims to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees centigrade with effort to stay within 1.5 degrees centigrade of pre-industrial levels. That also requires all countries to submit and update their own climate goals through nationally determined contributors. There are stresses, climate finance, technology transfer, capacity building to support developing nations. This represents a global consensus with a bottom-up approach, ensuring collecting responsibility and accountability. So again, there is another global environmental policy framework that is known as Convention on Biological Diversity, which was constituted in 1992, and that is for conservation of biodiversity. Further on, we will see that on the national basis, on this accord on Convention of Biological Diversity, many other programs are run, but the main motto, the main aim is conservation of biodiversity only. So this was adopted at Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit in 1992, and the main purpose was to conserve global biodiversity. It has three main domains, that is conservation, sustainable use, and fair benefits, sharing from genetic resources. It also encourages countries to develop national biodiversity strategy and action plan, that is known as NBSAPs, that promotes protection of ecosystem, species, and genetic diversity. It is further legally based with later agreement that is known as Nagoya Protocol on access and benefit sharing. So this is another international treaty which comes again, under global environmental policy, that is known as Basel Convention. So Basel Convention is on the basis of for transboundary movement and disposal of hazardous wastes. That is through either it is through water, air, etc. So the boundary should be limit if we are going to pollute our sea, ocean, etc. So it has not not only the effect in our country, but it has a transboundary movement and it is going to impact some other countries. So there is a legalities that how much we can emit. So Basel Convention 1989 is to control of hazardous waste, and it adopted to regulate transboundary movement and disposal of hazardous waste. It seeks to minimize generation of hazardous waste at the source. Where we are generating it, we have to stop its generation or treat its generation at the source only. It requires prior informed consent before shipping waste across borders. It prevents developed countries from dumping hazardous waste in developing nations. It strengthens environmentally sound management and recycling of waste. Another and a very important international treaty that again comes under global environmental policy is Montreal Protocol. So Paris Agreement is for climate change, greenhouse gases. Montreal Protocol is for ozone layer depletion. So that protects our ozone layer. It was launched in 1887, and the main aim was to phase out ozone substances, that is also known as ODS, ozone depleting substances, that are chlorofluorocarbons, halogens, etc. This is considered as one of the most successful environmental treaty and has a very universal ratification. Why? Because it has helped in the gradual healing of the ozone layer. So the ozone layer is coming back to its normal shape. It was established legally binding timelines for reducing of ozone depleting substances. It provided financial and technical assistance to develop transition to safer alternatives. So it is here when we are talking about environmental policies. So now we will be talking about some Indian environmental policies. So what are these policies? What are their objectives? And what are their framework or role we will be talking about. Okay. So where कहाँ चला गया? Why it is not? Where is presentation gone? Is my presentation visible?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
But I'm not able to see.
Ma'am, we are able to see your screen. The slide is in Indian environmental policies.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm not able to see. I'll just let me.
Maybe it is minimized at your end.
Minimized. Let me check out. You or screen sharing, yeah? Yes. Yeah, it's visible, but it's very small. How
Ma'am,
can
your
I?
screen is visible to
Yeah,
us.
yeah, I know that, but it is not visible to me. It's visible in a small, I think it just like that key. The participants are visible, that slide is visible.
And that is because of the mode, I suppose. The mode that is open for Zoom at your laptop.
So what I need to do?
Ma'am, just a second. Ma'am, just simply click on the PPT if you are able to see the slide.
Yeah, I am clicking it, but it's not working.
Just a second.
I'm able to see the.
I'll ask my technical team. Bhumika, ma'am, are you there?
Let me ask also.
Yes, ma'am.
मैम एक्चुअली मैम के लैपटॉप पे ना स्लाइड बहुत छोटी शो हो रही है तो आई थिंक देयर इज सम व्यू इशू आई सपोज बिकॉज हम मैम की पीपीटी देख पा रहे हैं मैम इज अनेबल टू सी
मैम क्योंकि मैम ने स्क्रीन शेयर कर रखा है.
अच्छा मैम यू आर नाउ चेंजिंग दी स्लाइड्स
Am I audible now?
yes ma'am you are audible and your slide is also visible ma'am
Now I can see. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I can see now.
okay ma'am thank you Bhumika ma'am
Okay. So it is Indian environmental policies I was talking about. So I was talking about the Indian environmental policies. So now we'll start with the Indian environmental policies. So what are the various Indian environmental policies and how they are helpful? So first we will start with National Conservation Strategies and Policy Statement on Environment and Development, which was launched in 1992. So the important aspect of this policy was that integration of environmental concern into development planning. It was adopted after Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit, that is in 1992. Aim to integrate environmental concern into national development planning, stress conservation of natural resources and ecosystem, promote sustainable use of land, water and forest, and lay groundwater and etc. अब दूसरा ही स्लाइड नहीं मूव हो रहा. Yes. Okay. So the next policy which we will be talking about under Indian environmental policy, so they are considered under B, that is sector specific policies. No. Yeah. So I'll just begin again. So India has developed a comprehensive framework guided by constitutional provision, that is Article 48A and Article 51A para G, and international commitment. So what is Article 48A and Article 51A para G? So they are the part of the Constitution of India through 42nd Amendment, and these articles were added for environment protection only, which states about the state and citizens' duty towards environment protection. So Article 48A stands for state, and Article 51A para G stands for citizens' duty for environment protection. And thus these duties becomes the environmental protection becomes as one of our fundamental duties. So India is the first country to place environment protection in its constitution. So these environmental policies in India have undergone significant evolution over the year to address the complex challenges posed by rapid industrialization, urbanization, and population growth. So environmental policies which has been framed, they are framed for the renewable energy policy, to generate renewable energy, to fix carbon pricing mechanism that we told about carbon credit, so that we can sell the carbon credit and earn green revenues. It has been made taking in consideration with the international environment agreements, as we have talked about the various Paris Agreement, Convention for Biological Diversity, etc. Then we come to some of the Indian environmental policies under the section A, which means broad environmental policies. These are considered as the broad environmental policies. They are not specific, but they are the main environmental policies. Under that, there is the first policy, that is the National Forest Policy. It is the oldest policy. It was launched in 1952. But later on, it was revised, and in 1988, it was revised, and recently it has been revised in 2018 also. So the main aim of this National Forest Policy is conservation, afforestation, sustainable use, and people's participation through joint forest management program. So the aim is conservation and sustainable management of forest, promotes afforestation and tree plantation, to increase forest cover, encourages sustainable use of forest resources without ecological harm, and stresses people participation through joint forest management program. So what is joint forest management program? That is, the forest will manage with the local people, and both of them will be in a role to take care of that forest for conservation and for better implementation. And this policy was revised in 2018, that is known as draft, emphasizes climate resilience, biodiversity protection, and community involvement. Next is a very important policy that is known as National Environmental Policy. We also call it NEP 2006. So it is an umbrella policy, and the main aim is conservation, livelihood security, and sustainable development. It serves as an umbrella policy for environmental protection. It helps in conservation of critical ecological resources. It ensures livelihood security for the communities who are dependent on the natural resources. It promotes sustainable development by balancing ecology and economy, and it also encourages public participation, awareness, and environmental governance. Another policy under Indian environmental policies, Group A, is National Conservation Strategies and Policy Statement on Environment and Development, which was launched again in 1992. So the main aim is integration of environmental concern into development planning. It was adopted by Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit 1992. It aims to integrate environmental concern into national development planning. It focuses on conservation of natural resources and ecosystem, and it promotes the sustainable uses of land, water, and forest. Now we will be talking about Indian environmental policies under the section B. They are sector-specific policies. So they are confined to a particular sector, like National Water Policy. So it is, as the name suggests, so the main role will always be the water resource management. So the aim of the National Water Policy was launched in 1987, again revised in 2002, again in 2012. So the main aim is integrated water resource management, equitable use, and sustainability. It advocates integrated water resource management. It emphasizes on equitable distribution of water among sector and users. It focuses on sustainability, conservation, and efficiency in water uses. It encourages rainwater harvesting and groundwater recharge. Another sector-specific policy is National Biodiversity Action Plan, which was launched in 2008 and was updated in 2014. So this policy aligns with the global policy, which is known as Convention of Biological Diversity, CBD. And the objectives are prepared in line of CBD only. So its aim is to conserve ecosystem, species, and genetic resources. It ensures sustainable use of biodiversity for development. It promotes equitable sharing of benefit arising from biological resources and was updated in 2014. Next policy which we are going to talk about the Indian environmental policies under Sector B is National Action Plan on Climate Change, that is known as NAPCC 2008. It is very important policy regarding the guidelines provided to combat climate change. So, it is India's comprehensive strategy to address climate change challenges. It has launched 8 national missions, and they are to promote basically the green practices and basically the renewable energy. So most of the missions are to generate how we can generate renewable energy. So in that, the first one is National Solar Mission. Another one is National Mission on Enhanced Energy Efficiency. The third one is National Mission on Sustainable Habitat. Again, sustainable habitat will include the smart cities where we have less use of resources and alternative use of energies resources, where we are practicing alternative use of energy resources, etc., etc. National Green India Mission to, that leads for afforestation drive. The National Mission on Sustainable Agriculture, which leads to promote organic farming. The National Mission for sustaining the Himalayan ecosystem to preserve that is again for the conservation of biodiversity. The National Mission on Strategic Knowledge for Climate Change, so again to combat climate change. So it encourages energy sufficiency, adaptation, and renewable energy. So another policy under sector specific policy is National Energy Policy. So it is specific to energy. So it was drafted in 2017. It promotes a shift towards renewable and clean energy resources. So encourage energy efficiency across sectors. It supports low carbon pathway for sustainable growth. It aims for energy security while reducing dependence on fossil fuels. It focuses on affordability, accessibility, and environmental protection. Next, sector-specific policy is National Electric Mobility Mission, which was launched in 2013. It aims to accelerate the adoption of electric and hybrid vehicle. It supports reduction in dependence on fossil fuels. It contributes to lowering vehicular emission and air pollution. It provides incentives for manufacturing and adoption of EVs, part of a long-term strategy for clean and sustainable transportation. Then comes Indian environmental policies, pollution control and policies. They are basically, these policies are specific for pollution control. So these are National Air Quality Monitoring Program, which you people are generally air quality index you are aware about. आपको पता होगा air quality index हमेशा it is there that अभी आज का AQI इतना है, आज का AQI इतना है. So this we get these things from this National Air Quality Monitoring Program only. So that regular monitoring of ambient air, basically launched for regular monitoring of ambient air quality in India. It covers major pollutants like SO2, NO2, PM10, PM2.5. PM10 and PM2.5 are the particulate matters, which is the part of the smog which we see. Is very much dependent on PM10 and PM2.5, and basically the construction industry is very much contributor of these particulate matter. It operates through a network of monitoring station across cities. It helps in accessing long-term air quality trends, provide data for policy making and public awareness. Next I'm talking about, that is also known as FAME. So it is National Electric Vehicle Policy 2020 to reduce vehicular pollution. So the FAME accounts for faster adoption and manufacturing of hybrid and electric vehicles. So it is the promotion of hybrid as well as electric vehicle through India scheme. It aims to promote electric mobility and reduce vehicular pollution. It provide implemented through faster adoption and manufacturing of hybrid and electric vehicles, that is known as FAME. It provide incentives for EV buyers, electric vehicles buyers and manufacturers. It reduces dependence on fossil fuels and contributes to cleaner air and sustainable sustainable transport. So again, under pollution control policies, the next policy is National Clean Air Program, which is known as NCAP. It reduces particulate pollution by 20 to 30% by 2024. It has been launched to tackle air pollution in Indian cities. The target to reduce PM2.5 and PM10 level by 2030 by 20 to 30% by 2024 based on 2017 levels. So the 2017 levels ka 20 to 30% will be reduced by 2024. It focuses on 102 non-attainment cities with poor air quality, including Delhi, one of them. Involves multi-sectoral coordination, that is transport, industry, urban planning, and strengthens the monitoring, research and public participation. Another environmental policy with respect to pollution control policy is plastic waste management, that was launched in 2016 and amended in 2022, that bans on single-use plastic. So it regulates plastic waste generation, collection and disposal. It promotes segregation at source, जहां से generate हो रहा है वहीं पे segregate कर दें plastic को, which is recyclable and which one are not recyclable. 2022 amendment bans the single use of plastics. It has introduced extended producer responsibility, which is also known as EPR, for producer and brand owners. So what is extended producer responsibility? That the producer who are producing this plastic have to recycle this plastics, aim for a circular economy and reduce plastic pollution. Next, which we are going to talk about is under the pollution control policies is e-waste management rule, that is e-waste management rule 2011, which was updated in 2016. So it will tell us, as I have told you earlier also, that is extended producer responsibility. What is EPR? So first national policy to manage electronic waste. They introduced extended producer responsibility for collection and recycling of the e-waste. This covers like computer, mobile phone and consumer electronics. They promote authorized recycling and safe disposal that seek to minimize health and environmental risk from hazardous e-waste. Here I would like to tell you that whatever the electronic gadgets we take from the market, we need to ask them, the buyers, that what is the EPR policy for that product. So definitely when we are going to buy a new product, how it will be recycled, whether the brand which we are taking is going to take this, whether we will be getting money for that, if we are disposing the item through the proper channel and etc. So we should be aware about this extended producer responsibility, and we need to talk to them because it is there. Then we come to the policies which we are going to talk is about the constitutional and legal backing. The environmental policies which have constitutional and legal backing. इसमें से एक दो तो अभी already I have told about you regarding the 42nd amendment that was there in 1976, which added environment protection as a duty, as a fundamental duty through two articles, that is Article 48A, which is also known as directive principles, and Article 51A, that is known as fundamental duties. And it added environmental protection as a duty of the state and the citizen, and marked the constitutional basis for environmental protection in India. It placed through this article, it placed environmental protection in the Constitution of India. Under this constitutional and legal backing, again there were some other acts launched for the environment protection, in which the latest one was Environmental Protection Act 1986 and the oldest was Wildlife Conservation Act 1972, which we will be talking about them also. So Environmental Protection Act 1986, when we are talking about, it is called as umbrella legislation, and it was formed after Bhopal gas tragedy 1984. It serves as an umbrella legislation covering all aspects of environmental protection. So this is also known as Mother of All Act, because if we need to consult things, see things with respect to water pollution, air pollution, forest act, wildlife act, so we can refer to this act. But if we need to talk individually about that act, then we go to that act and then check out further the details. So that's why this is known as Mother of All Act. Serve as an umbrella legislation covering all aspects of environmental protection. It empowers the central government to set standards and regulate pollution. It provides the legal basis for rules on hazardous waste, EIA, coastal zones, etc. Then comes another act under this, that is Air and Water Act. The Air Act was constituted in 1981 and Water Act was constituted in 1974. They are again for regulation of pollution, air as well as water. So Water Act 1974 tells us to control and prevent water pollution. Establishes pollution control boards through establishment of pollution control boards. So they are Central Pollution Control Board and State Pollution Control Board. Then Air Act 1981 regulates industrial and vehicular emission, ensure air quality standards. Both had focus on pollution regulation and monitoring. Then next is Wildlife Protection Act 1972. So as I told you, among all the acts, this was the first act launched after 42nd Amendment for environment protection and conservation. The first act was Wildlife Protection Act, and after that, the further act, Air Act, Water Act, Environment Protection Act were launched. So Wildlife Protection Act 72 is for protection of species and habitats. It provides for protection of wild animal, bird and plants. It introduced schedules for species protection like hunting, restrictions, trade, bans, etc. It strengthened against poaching and illegal trading of wildlife, and it establishes the protected areas like national park, sanctuary, biosphere reserves, etc. Then another act which has been backed by constitutional and legal backing is Biological Diversity Act 2002. That is for the conservation of biodiversity and equitable benefit sharing. So it again aligns with Convention of Biological Diversity, which we have talked about, that is CBD 1992. It promotes conservation, sustainable use, and equitable benefit sharing for the conservation of biological diversity. It has created National Biodiversity Authority for regulation, and it protects our traditional knowledge and community right over resources. Then next is National Green Tribunal Act 2010. That is for environmental justice framework. So it So National Green Tribunal Act has established National Green Tribunal, that is NGT. Whenever you hear about the decision taken by Supreme Court regarding environment protection or conservation, that is through National Green Tribunal only, NGT only. So provides a specified judicial mechanism for environmental disputes. It ensures speedy and effective disposal of cases relating to environment, and it also strengthens the environment protection. Then we come to emerging policy trend. So as I told you, for the policy trends, what are the various targets which what are the legal frameworks which has been established? So the first one which we have talked about, that was extended producer responsibility, that is known as EPR, that is for plastic, batteries and e-waste, where the companies or the institution or the factories where this product has been produced, they'll take the responsibility of their collection, recycling and disposal. So that holds producer responsible for collection, recycling and disposal of their products. This applies for plastic, batteries and e-waste. It encourages company to design eco-friendly and recyclable products. Then next comes the circular economy policy framework, where it promotes recycling, reuse and waste minimization, that focuses on reuse, recycling and resource efficiency. So circular economy is basically depends upon the principle of reuse, 3R, that is reuse, recycling and resource efficiency. It aims to reduce waste generation and promote closed loop system. Closed loop system means the waste is taken and then waste is recycled, and finally all the process collection से segregation तक का responsibility is taken by the person who is doing circular economy. It supports sustainable production and consumption. The next is net zero target, that is till 2070, that comes under COP26 declaration, and India long-term climate strategy, because India has pledged that it will become net zero emission by 2070. So that is key, no emission will be there. We will be totally into renewables by 2070, and it intermediates the goal to reduce carbon intensity and energy share. So thus we come to the last part of our presentation, that is conclusion. So before that we finish, we come to the conclusion, I'll be talking about the challenges also. What are the challenges when we are talking about the capacity building and the environment governments we are facing? So that is the lack of skilled human resource in environmental department. So there are very less people who are skilled in human resource in the environmental departments, weak monitoring and enforcement capacity, limited financial support for local implementation, fragmentation between ministries like water, forest, urban development. They all want to work at individual level, not at joint level. Insufficient community participation in policy execution. This gap between policy ambition and ground level capacity is a major hurdle. So these were the challenges which we have talked about. So now I would like to conclude that environmental challenges such as climate change, biodiversity loss and pollution, it requires not only robust policies, but also the institutional and human capacity to implement them effectively. Global and national framework like Paris Agreement, Montreal Protocol, India's National Environment Policy, National Action Plan on Climate Change provides a roadmap for sustainable development. Yes, policies alone are insufficient. Capacity building ensures that individual institution and system gain the skill, resource and knowledge to translate commitment into action. It strengthens the government's forest coordination across sectors, empowers community, and promote innovation. In essence, policies set the vision while capacity building enables its realization. Together, they form a dynamic and inclusive framework to address current ecological crisis and prepare for future challenges in a sustainable way. As an educator, what could be the role of academia through these FDPs? So, as educator, researcher, and policymaker, we play a very important role, a very vital role in building capacity. Faculty development programs like this one are critical because they enable knowledge sharing, research collaboration, and awareness building. We can train students and communities to be environmentally responsible citizens who can bridge the policy practice gap. So, what can be the takeaway? So, and through this presentation. So the takeaway from this presentation could be that the environmental policies are the roadmap, but the capacity building provides the vehicle to reach the destination. Without strengthening governance, institution, training, individual and involving community policies remains only on the paper. So together, by merging the policy framework with human and institutional capacity, we can create an effective system of environmental governance for a sustainable future. So policies gives us direction, but capacity gives us momentum. Only when the two move together, we can achieve meaningful environmental outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now the forum is open for the questions. If anybody of you have, you can unmute yourself and discuss with ma'am. Ma'am, I have received something from Dr. Babu. He has two issues regarding environment.
Yes.
One is from 1983 to 2001. The Unilever subsidiary Hindustan Unilever Limited operated a thermometer factory in Kodaikanal in a beautiful hill station in Tamil Nadu. The factory used large amounts of elementary mercury in its manufacturing process. So he is talking about how the mercury toxic waste was disposed of, as it led to the severe contamination in the Western Ghats. So he is saying what is action has been taken in this context for in case of Hindustan Unilever.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. What I get is that how the Unilever had disposed this mercury, as it was the part of the contamination of Western Ghat, and which is a very, what we can say, the ecology that comes under the ecological zone. So at present, I cannot tell how it has Unilever has discarded the waste, but yes, mercury comes under a very highly toxic waste, and the management of hazardous and toxic waste, the rules of handling them is totally separate, so that needs to be taken care of. And if Unilever has not taken up, so I have to check out कि how it was how मतलब कैसे पता चला कि यूनिलीवर ने वो वेस्टर्न घाट में डिस्पोज किया था, was it the correct statement or not, and what practice it was, मतलब किस तरह से उसको फिर देखा गया और क्या implement हुआ, that I need to check with respect to Unilever, but that I can tell that mercury comes under a highly toxic waste, and that need to जहां भी अगर इसका production हो रहा है, that need to be discarded under, as I told you, hazardous management handling rules के through.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, the second issue that sir has raised is related to the Union Carbide Indian Limited pesticide plant in Bhopal in Madhya
Bhopal gas
Pradesh.
tragedy.
December 2nd to 3rd, 1984, which was the worst industry disaster. The Bhopal gas tragedy is not historical footnote, but ongoing struggle for justice, adequate healthcare, and environmental remediations for the survivor and the descendants. So he wants to ask your comments about this issue also.
Yes, definitely. The Bhopal gas tragedy was a very much landmark. As I have told you that the major Indian policies which were made made. First of all, the Environment Act 1986 was after भोपाल गैस ट्रेजेडी ओनली, क्योंकि भोपाल गैस ट्रेजेडी के पहले हमारे पास उतने अच्छे लॉज और पॉलिसीज नहीं थे। तो इस वजह से जो चीजें हुई उस दौरान भोपाल गैस ट्रेजेडी में, तो इंडियन एनवायरमेंटल लेजिस्लेशन वाज एट, आई थिंक, टीथिंग प्रोसेस में था। इट वाज फ्रेमवर्क डिसाइड हो चुका था, बना नहीं था, मतलब बहुत अच्छे से इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं हुआ था। तो इट मेड इट कि बहुत ही ज्यादा वो, मतलब situation was very alarming, and the sufferers were still, we are able to see that ki Bhopal mein soil are still contaminated. If you can check out, the traces of pesticides and the carbides are present there. The stillborn babies are born there. So it has a very detrimental effect. But the now, through the various policies which has been implemented, so it is there ki if anybody is releasing this type of toxic product, or such type of industrial accident happens in future, so it will be very detrimental for that industry. They have to take care of the things which come under these rules or the policies.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you from his side. Anybody else from the participants would like to ask something from ma'am? You can unmute yourself. Anybody else? You can unmute yourself if possible. Bhumika ma'am, can the participants unmute themselves to ask questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, anybody else want to ask something from ma'am before we depart for a short break? I think there are no more questions. Ma'am, you will be taking a break for 10 minutes and then coming back again?
Yes, 10 minutes, please.
Okay, ma'am, it's 7:21 right now. Let's meet at 7:30 if it's fine with you.
Yeah, definitely 7:30.
Okay, ma'am, thank you. Okay, participants, we are departing for a short break of 10 minutes and then we will come back by 7:30. Thank you everybody for the first session. Ma'am, can we start the session?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm there. Just
Okay, ma'am. Fine.
second.
Okay, dear participants, we are welcoming you for the second session on promoting research for indigenous knowledge systems by Dr. Neelina Singh. Over to you, ma'am. You can start the session.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Okay.
excuse me. At the end of the session, kindly try to, we have to unmute ourselves to speak, ma'am. But it comes as the host has disabled the unmute. So
Yeah.
in the last session, I was unable to unmute it. And in group chat also, I am not able to write
Yes, ma'am.
anything.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I have asked my host, my technical team to do so. You will be able to put your questions in the chat box, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. This session you do like that, ma'am.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Ma'am, you can start.
Yeah, just let me make it full screen. Is it full screen?
No, ma'am. It's not full screen.
Okay. Now it is full screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
And ma'am.
Okay. So once again, I welcome you. So good evening, respected faculty members and the dear participants. It is my privilege to share the insight on the theme Indigenous System for the Conservation of Biodiversity in promoting research for Indigenous Knowledge System, that is also known as Traditional Ecological Knowledge. Short, we call it IEK or TEK. So TEK stands for Traditional Ecological Knowledge. When we talk about India, India has a legacy of ecological wisdom that dates back to the Vedic period. And even today, these practices holds immense relevance in addressing modern environmental challenges. Through this presentation, we are going to explore how traditional knowledge, cultural practices, and grassroots movement has shaped and continue to shape biodiversity conservation in our country. So before I start, I would like to ask you people that have you ever wondered how our ancestors thousands of years ago, without any laboratories, satellites or Google, could still predict monsoons, protect forest, conserve water, and live in harmony with wildlife? The answer lies in what we call our indigenous knowledge system, that is IKS. So in this presentation, it has been divided into many sectors. So we will be talking about, first of all, about the first how our heritage like Vedas, Upanishads provides us the ecological wisdom. Then the next part is going to cover is how nature acted as a teacher and provided us the wisdom. The third part is how epics provided us, the various epics, Mahabharata, Ramayana provided us the ecological wisdom. Then how tradition helped in providing ecological wisdom. Then how our saints, Mahavira, Buddha, etc., have provided ecological wisdom. Then there are various case studies of ancient that tells us about how. Yes. Please unmute yourself. Please unmute yourself. Okay. That we will be talking about through taking up various case studies. Then also we will be talking about the tribal knowledge which provided us the ecological wisdom. And last we will be talking about the first part of our session in which we have talked about the conservation practices at global level. So how ecological wisdom are in with relationship with our modern conservation practices. So to begin with, as we know that India is one of the intellectual heritage. India's intellectual heritage reflects deep ecological wisdom present in ancient texts like Vedas and Upanishads. So from the hymn of the Vedas and the philosophy of the Upanishads, please unmute yourself. Participants, please unmute yourself. Okay. So I would request people to please listen.
Participants, please maintain the decorum.
From the hymn of Vedas and the philosophy of Upanishad to the practical codes in Arthashastra and the community practices of tribal societies, Indians have always integrated nature with culture, science, and spirituality, and environment with ethics. The traditional ecological wisdom is not just ancient history, it continues to influence how communities conserve biodiversity even today. So why it is important, why it matters a lot. At a time when climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution threatens our planet, we often search for technological fixes. But sometimes the most powerful solution lies in revisiting our traditional practices. Indigenous knowledge, whether it is through sacred groups, totemic tradition, which we will be talking about, or disaster prediction methods, offer sustainable, community-driven, and time-tested solutions. So, in this session, we are going to explore how India's indigenous tradition reflects deep ecological wisdom. So here we will be talking about how sacred texts, epics, and cultural practices embody environmental ethics, how indigenous method of conserving flora and fauna and ecosystem through case studies and tribal knowledge in biodiversity and disaster resilience, and the importance of integrating traditional ecological knowledge with modern science for sustainable future. So as we move through the presentation, let us reflect on the wisdom of our past and can guide the sustainability of our future. So India's intellectual heritage is not only about philosophy, mathematics, or astronomy. It also reflects a deep ecological consensus. If we look closely at our ancient texts, we find that the nature was reversed as sacred and inseparable from human life. The India's traditions, customs, and religious teaching have a long promoted reverence for nature, embedding environmental protection into daily life through rites and rituals. These practices fostered a deep bond with the environment, often conveying conservation message in subtle way. In today's era of ecological crisis, revisiting and learning from such tradition is more crucial than ever. So the Vedas and the Upanishad, the culture of conservation of nature dates back to the ancient Vedic period. The four Vedas, Rig Veda, Samveda, Yajurveda, and the Atharva Veda, are full of hymns dedicated to the supremacy of various natural entities. The Rig Veda describes river, mountain, trees, and animal as divine forces. For example, Agni, fire, Vayu, air, Jal, water, and Prithvi, that is earth, were worshipped as deities. The Upanishad emphasizes the interconnectedness of all being, captured in the idea that the self, that is Atman, and the universe, that is Brahman, are one. A clear reminder that harming nature is equivalent to harming ourselves. The Rig Vedic hymn refer to many gods and goddesses identified with sun, moon, thunder, lightning, snow, rain, water, river, trees, etc. The next, glorified and worshipped as giver of health, wealth, and prosperity, the rain god Indra has the largest number of him attached to him. So when we come about the nature, we know that the sun is the ultimate source of energy. And the sun, the worship of sun, the sun worship is of vital importance in the Vedic worship. The sun was worshipped in the form of God like Surya, Matanda, Usa, Pusan, Rudra. Even nowadays, we celebrate Chhat Puja. It is an example in this modern era as a symbol of carrying our traditional ecological knowledge, where we keep sun as the supreme power. Today, it has been proved that solar energy is the ultimate source of energy that regulates the energy flow through the food chain, drives various nutrient cycle, and thus control the ecosystem all over the earth. But it was probably well understood and realized by the ancient people as well. So yeah, the things which we are now explaining through our food chain, that the transfer of energy from one tropic level to another tropic level constitutes the food chain, and food chain is the thing which circulates the energy which keeps us alive, that is through transfer of energy. So this was already known by our ancient people. Next, we talk about the Gayatri mantra of the Rig Veda, that is Om Bhurbhava Swaha Tasya Vidurvarniyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimi Diyo Na Prachodayat. The Gayatri mantra of Rig Veda, which is chanted on every auspicious occasion, is full of praise of sun. Thiruvullar Kural, an ancient text in Tamil from South India, stresses the need to remain under nature's protection, that is sparkling water, open spaces, hills and forests constitute a fortress. Again, Guru Granth Sahib states that air is the father and earth is the mother. We talk about the various flora and fauna, how they speaks about ecological wisdom. So in the Atharva Veda, that glorifies the medicinal value of various herbs like Kalpavriksha and Parijat with mythical power. Then people tree, also known as Bodhi tree, Aswastha in Sanskrit, Ficus religiosa, that is also known as banyan tree, became a folk rituals, and the people was called the king of trees in Brahma Purana. The bale, that is also known as Agili, Marmelos, sandalwood, coconut, Durva grass, that is Synodon dactylian, Tulsi, Osium sanctum, etc., has very important and religious as well as medicinal properties. The ancient philosophy of nature was not just a resource, but also that guided us as a teacher. The rhythm of season, migration of birds, flowering of plants, all were studied to understand cosmic order. This shows that Indian knowledge system were holistic, combining science, spirituality, and ecology into one world. When we talk about environmental ethics in ancient thoughts, the epics like Mahabharata, Ramayana, and the Kalidas Meghdut, Abhigyan Sakuntalam provides colorful portrayal of trees, creeper, animal and birds, conveying with people and conversing with people and sharing their joys and sorrows. Watering the plant is considered as greatly rewarding in the Dharma Astra text. Kautilya, cutting of trees, was not considered good. So the Ramayana, when we talk about the epics, our great epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, not only the story tells us about the stories of heroism and values, but also treasure house of ecological wisdom. They portray forest, river and animal as an integral to human destiny. The Ramayana, much of the Ramayana unfolds in forest, Chitrakoot, Panchvati, Kishkindha, showing the forest as a space of learning, refuge, and moral testing. The Vanaras, which are the monkeys, and the bears, are allies to Lord Rama, symbolizing cooperation between human and wildlife. Even the central conflict and abduction of Sita takes place in a grove, underlying in the importance of respecting sacred natural spaces. In the Mahabharata, the epic describes sacred rivers like Ganga and Yamuna and emphasizes their role in sustaining life. The story of Arjuna receiving weapons in the Himalayas reflects reverence for mountains as abodes of divine energy. The Bhagavad Gita, embedded within the Mahabharata, teaches the principle of Lok Sangraha, acting for the welfare of the world, which includes protecting nature. So, in the epics, the animal are not portrayed as lesser being, but as protector, companions, and guides. Forests are seen as wilderness to be conquered, but as space of spiritual growth, learning, and balance with nature. So, thus we can say that these epics remind us that nature is not outside of our cultural narrative. It is woven into our ethics, values, and spirituality. Building on this, Indian tradition also developed practical system of conservation such as sacred groups, which we are going to discuss now. So, what are sacred groups? So we can see here in the picture also. So votive horses in the sacred group of Madurai region. So what are these sacred groups when we are talking about? So sacred groups are the traditional conservation practices. So these sacred groups are commonly protected patches of forest, often with rich biodiversity, preserved due to cultural and religious belief, with tradition, taboos preventing exploitation. These groups serve as vital ecological hotspots. So nowadays we call them as a hotspots, so which is very much rich in biodiversity, and that is hardly the 2% of the whole of the biodiversity. So they are very much specific. The endemic species are present there. That protects native vegetation, endangered species, and facilitates soil and water conservation. So if we move from epic to practice, one of the most striking example of India's traditional ecological wisdom is in the concept of sacred groves. As I told you that these are the patches of forest protected by local communities for centuries, often dedicated to a deity or a spirit. So that is key. When they dedicate it to a deity or a spirit, then it is that they are not going to harm that place. So they have a fear of harming that place. Then they see that if anything is done there, if any harm is done there, so the curse will be there, and thus those patches remains protected. So that is again a way of environmental conservation, biodiversity conservation. So as I told you, the tradition of sacred grove was also common in the ancient period and is still practiced by folk and tribal communities. Such groups were regarded as the abodes of gods and goddess or spirit, and hence protected with utmost care. These tradition of sacred groups could be matched with the contemporary notion of biosphere reserve. Yes, so these can be nowadays we can call them as biosphere reserve. So they are found across India from Devar Kaduzas of Karnataka and Sarna of Jharkhand to the Kavus of Kerala. These groups are living biodiversity reserves. Communities believes that deity reside in these groups, so cutting tree, hunting animal, or disturbing the ecosystem is strictly prohibited. The spiritual protection has helped conserve countless species of plant, bird, and animals. Another practice is regarding totemism and totem. So what is totemism and totem? So totemism refer to the symbolic relationship between a group of people and a natural entity, usually an animal or a plant, which they considered sacred are emblematic of their group. So the things they are which they consider, they worship, or they consider them sacred, is the part of this practice, totemism or totem. So totemism is the belief of a society in which humans are considered to be related to some animal, tree, plant, or other spirit. The word totem is derived from Otomen of the Native American tribal language, Ojibwa, which means one's brother, sister, relative. Often the totem animal or the tree is worshipped and has the relationship with the tribe. for the special occasion or a special manner. And this help in again not harming that animal or the tree whom they symbolize with themselves. So that again is a practice of conservation of biodiversity. So here it is, there is a tabular form to tell about the totemism and the totem. The tribes are the Khilis of Jharkhand. The totem is Hansada, a wild goose, a big tiger, and the Jamuda spring and the Tew fox. For Mundas in Tripura, the Soi, that is saltfish, the Nag, the serpent, and the Hasa goose are considered as a totem. Santhal of Chota Nagpur, Murmu, wild cow, Chande, a lizard, and Boer, a fish, it considered as a totem. For Adi in Arunachal Pradesh, some big tree, dense forest, unique kind of rugged and gorgy mountains, certain animal like tiger, toad, and wagtail are considered as totem, and so on. So thus we can see that the tribe which practice this totem. So basically the totem, the animals or the trees or the plants which are the part of the totem, if we consider it to the present day conservation methods of the biodiversity, we can find them in the endangered or vulnerable species. So that was already, they have a vision that they knew that these species are in less number, and in future they are going to be, their numbers are going to be less, so they can fall into the endangered or vulnerable category. The next practice is of taboo. Taboo. So taboo indicates those caution established to guard against supernaturally dangerous things, plants, animal, or person, specifically those possessing mana. So again here it is the threat is leading to conservation of biodiversity. We can see that the practice that the threat is leading to conservation of biodiversity. Dimasa Society of Northeast India and Assam, it is taboo to go near or cut down a certain kind of tree because it is believed that in doing so, the spirit are sure to inflict punishment upon the person and upon his, her clan in various ways. In some areas of Maharashtra, fishing is not allowed during some specific month of the year. And might be this is related to that that time of year is the breeding time of those fishes, and thus it was considered as a taboo to not to fish them at that time. So next we are talking about the wildlife and the ecological wisdom which we get from these wildlife. Okay, so wildlife are even domesticated once were given pride of place and respect in the ancient tradition. In the later slide, we'll see that how these wildlife were the part of our Indian deities, gods. Many Hindu god and goddess have some particular animal or bird as their vehicle or vahana. The association of wild animal with people, religious belief, played a significant role in their preservation for so very long in India until the colonial rule indulged in intensive hunting. The feeling of sacredness attached to the wildlife. So here we can see that the Lord Shiva, the Vahan is ox, Nandi, and the snake. And they are very much nowadays also they are worshipped, and they are the part of the conservation method. We do not harm these animals. Again, the goddess Saraswati, the swan, the Hans. So again, it is considered as sacred and it is not harm. And that is the way how they are protected. Then Lord Ganesha, the mouse, is considered as the Vahana of Lord Ganesha. So how wildlife is related with our god and goddess. So Lord Murugan, peacock, is considered as its Vahan. Lord Krishna, Gadud and cow are attached to the Lord Krishna, and goddess Durga, the lion. So This shows that how wildlife was always related to our Indian god and goddesses. Before that, we take the case study of the indigenous species. We will relate with the philosopher and the saints how their ecological wisdom have helped. The Indian philosopher and the saints have always emphasized the inseparable link between nature and human life. For them, protecting the environment was not just a duty, but a spiritual responsibility. The philosophical insight, ancient texts like the Upanishad teaches us that the universe is one family, Vasudev Kudumbakam. This includes not only human, but also living being, plant, rivers, and mountains. The Isha Upanishads remind us that everything in the universe belongs to the supreme, and human are only trustees, not exploiters of the nature. Ahimsa, non-violence, taught by Jainism and Buddhism, extends beyond human to animal and even the smallest living organism. The teaching of the saints like Buddha emphasized compassion for all living beings and encouraged sustainable living through moderation and mindfulness. Mahavira preached respect for all forms of life, leading to practice like vegetarianism and protection of biodiversity. Guru Nanak referred to air as Guru, water as Father, and earth as the Great Mother, placing natural elements in the highest position of the reverence. Sant Kabir and other Bhakti Sants highlighted simplicity, contentment, and harmony with the natural world. The cultural ethics for saint and philosopher, ecology was not separate from spirituality. Caring for river, tree, and animal was seen as an extension of devotion. These integrated vision made environmental ethics a way of life rather than an external imposition. So, in the next slide, we are going to study about the how the historical movements like the Vishnoi traditions, the Chipko movement became powerful example of ecological conservation. So, first of all, I will be explaining about the Vishnoi movement and the conservation. So, this Vishnoi movement which we are talking about is very important to us to understand the traditional wisdom translated into real conservation action. So, Bishnoi community belongs to Rajasthan. The Bishnoi community founded by Guru Jambleshwar in the 15th century follows 29 principles, many of which are about protecting nature. They prohibit cutting trees, green trees, and killing animals. Their devotion to nature became legendary in 1730 during the Khejri massacre, when Amrita Devi Bishnoi and 363 villagers sacrificed their life to save Khejri tree from being cut by the king's men. So it is presented in the slide. You can see the picture. In the Khejri village of Rajasthan, about 363 people embraced the Khejri tree to protect them from being felled by the king's men. The Bishnois hugged them, and many were killed in this episode. Later, a temple was built in honor of the Bishnoi martyrs. One of the leading women of the movement was Amrita Devi Bishnoi. The repentant king later. So we can see this is the Khejri tree, which scientific name is Prosopis cinerea. These have high nutritional value for camels, cattle, sheep, and goat. Villagers used khesri leaves as organic matter for rejuvenating non-fertile soil. Women use its flour mixed with sugar during their pregnancy as a safeguard against miscarriage, and its bark is effective against dysentery. And another value of these khesri tree is that they are very long rooted, so they retain the water. And the bavadis, the wells near these trees, are not dried up. If these trees are there, the wells are not dried up. And the ladies and the women do not have to go to the distant places to fetch the water. So this was again a ecological response reason for why the people were not in favor of cutting these trees. So this act of bravery is remembered as one of the earliest environmental movements in the world. Another movement, which is a recent one in 1970s, that is Chipko movement. The word Chipko means to hug. When large-scale deforestation threatened Himalayan foresters, local villagers, especially women, embraced trees to prevent loggers from cutting them. The leader, like Gaura Devi and the activist Sundarlal Bahuguna, gave the movement national recognition. It was a turning point in India's modern environmental history, inspiring later movement for sustainable development. Some of the other examples of ecological conservation through historical movements are Apiko movement in Karnataka, inspired by Chipko villagers, fought against tree felling in the Western Ghats. Then sacred river and lakes, many community worship river like Ganga, Yamuna and Brahmaputra, ensuring their cultural and ecological protection. So thus, we can say that these case studies shows that indigenous systems were not just theories or rituals. They became powerful social movement that protected biodiversity and set example for sustainable living. So from these inspiring movements, we now shift to the tribal indigenous knowledge, how these tribals have helped in gaining the ecological wisdom and how these ecological wisdom would help in the conservation of the biodiversity or the ecological diversity. So India is home to many ethnic communities scattered across various terrain, and their combined knowledge would provide valuable insights into the conservation of our flora and fauna. Out of 45,000 plant species found in India, around 7,500 species are used for medicinal purpose in indigenous health practice, and nearly 3,900 species are consumed by tribal as food. Despite the global recognition of the link between traditional environment knowledge and the sustainable development practices, its contribution remains largely invisible. So, in this presentation, we will be talking about following tribes and their indigenous knowledge or traditional ecological knowledge. So, they are Soligas of Biligiri, Karnataka, Sompens of Great Nicobar, Andamanese tribe, Lepchas of Sikkim, Birhors of Jharkhand, Ao Nagas of Nagaland, Apathanis of Arunachal Pradesh, tribes of Meghalaya, etc. We will be taking some of the tribals and their ecological wisdom. So first we take about the tribal indigenous knowledge of Soliga tribe of Bilgiri Rangaswamy Temple, Wildlife Sanctuary, Karnataka, located amidst in the Western Ghat and Eastern Ghat. The Soligas have been living here since immemorial. They share a continuous, intimate relationship with the forest, depending on for it most of their basic needs such as food, fodder, fuel, medicine, etc. These Soliga tribes are known as children of bamboo because they collect bamboo shoots and other forest produce, especially during the monsoon season, as a vital part of their traditional nutrition and livelihood. They are primarily involved in shifting cultivation and collection of non-timber forest products for their livelihood. So, the importance of shifting cultivation and the collection of non-timber products by Soliga tribes is an environmental conservation technique through traditional ecological knowledge. The Soligas practice shifting cultivation, that is also known as Podu, and sustainable forest produce collection in harmony with nature, relying on indigenous knowledge passed down through generation. Their farming avoid chemicals and allowing land to regenerate and simultaneously providing food, water and center for wildlife, which helps in forest conservation and reduce poaching. Similarly, their careful harvesting of ripe fruits and berries ensure enough is left for animal, maintaining ecological balance. So we can see that. Yes. Yes, Devshri Vishana, ma'am, kindly unmute yourself. Kindly mute yourself. Next ecological wisdom which we are sharing is the tribal indigenous knowledge, that is Sompins of Great Nicobar Island. So these Sompins are a nomadic indigenous hunter-gatherer community of Great Nicobar Island. They're living on hunting, gathering forest produce and small-scale cultivation. They lead a subsistence lifestyle and speak the distinct Sompin language unique to the island. The Sompin practice sustainable habitat management through unique traditional knowledge system. Devshri Viana ma'am. Okay. The Sompin practice sustainable habitat management through unique traditional knowledge system. What are these traditional knowledge system? They cut the tree above the base to allow regrowth. They create beehives in hollow trunk for honey collection, and they harvest water using. Kindly mute. Devshri Verma ma'am, Viana ma'am, kindly mute yourself. They cut. So thus we can see that these Sompins used to conserve plants through, as they cut this tree above base to allow regrowth. They create beehives in a hollow trunk for honey collection and harvest water using innovative jackville and bamboo channels. Their ethnobotanical knowledge includes using medicinal plants such as local ginger species for remedies and a natural repellent. Next tribe is about the Andamanese tribes. So these Andamanese refers to several indigenous people of the Andaman Island, which is the part of Indian Andaman Nicobar Island. These hunter-gatherer community rely on the island resource and have very degree of contact with the outside world and are being particularly isolated. These Andamanese tribes, including the Great Andamanese, survived 2004 tsunami by relying on their traditional disaster prediction knowledge. So here we can see that they can share the ecological wisdom and they can predict natural disaster. So these are the Lepchas of Sikkim. So the Lepchas traditional wisdom blends with medicine, ecology, disaster preparedness and sustainable living, making them custodian of both biodiversity and resilience. So we can see that they are very well versed in ethnomedicine and plant uses. So more than 45 plus medicinal plants for 62 diseases, avoid root use to keep plant alive. So they do not use root so that the plant is alive, and the knowledge is passed orally. So bamboo utilization used in houses, raft, utensil and instrument. 22 bamboos variety up to 12,000 feet. Seed used for drinks and breads. Disaster prediction, bird songs tell them about the good weather. Bird silence tells them about the storm or the rain. Bird movement tells them about forest fire. Bamboo flowering tells them about the famine. Animal behavior tells them about the earthquake. Traditional architects, that is bamboo and timber houses, etc. These are the Birhors of Jharkhand, another tribe. The Birhors are a semi-nomadic tribe of Jharkhand known for hunting, gathering and rope making from forest fiber. They speak the Birhor language following animism mixed with Hindu belief and worship the sun god, that is Singh Bonga. Though the government support them with settlement and livelihood program, deforestation and poverty threatens their traditional lifestyle. Rich ethnobotanical wisdom, plants for food and medicine and rituals are their ecological wisdom, rope making from forest fiber and later plastic sacks, zoo therapy, animal part used for nutrition and healing, ecological knowledge at risk due to modern changes. Then the next part which we will be taking about is the global concern. Then why? So how the globally we are modern relevance of the integration with Indian traditional knowledge in support of biodiversity conservation. So we'll be talking about the why should we revisit indigenous ecological wisdom today? What relevance does it have in solving modern biodiversity challenges? So the global concern that today we face biodiversity loss, climate change, and unsustainable exploitation of our natural resources. The various global policies as well as Indian policies, which we have talked about in our previous session, the UN Convention of Biological Diversity, which we call CBD, the Sustainable Development Goal, which are SDGs goals. These all emphasizes community participation, conservation, and sustainable use. All principles deeply rooted in India's traditional practices. Alignment with national park, national policies. When we talk about national policies, we talk about National Biodiversity Action Plan, which integrate indigenous knowledge, especially in local biodiversity management. The Forest Right Act of 2006 empower tribal community, recognizing their role as traditional custodian of forest. We have talked about sacred groups. So sacred groups, water harvesting and organic farming practices are now being revisited as climate resilient solution. The community-centered conservation indigenous system reminds us that conservation cannot be achieved only by law. It requires community involvement and cultural values. For instance, sacred groups continue to protect microhabitat for rare species. Traditional water management like step well, Joherds, bamboo drip irrigation are models of sustainable resource uses. So bridging tradition and science, the modern science often validates what indigenous wisdom has practiced for centuries. Like Chipko's spirit of forest protection aligns with present-day carbon sequestration goal. Bishnoi ethics of tree protection resonate with ecosystem restoration under the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. The traditional ecological wisdom is not outdated. It provides a timeless framework for today's biodiversity conservation and global sustainability efforts. As we bring all these insights together, let us conclude by reflecting on how indigenous knowledge can guide us in building a sustainable future. So we can say that we have journeys through India's rich ecological wisdom from Vedic text and saint teaching to inspiring conservation movement like Bishnois and Chipko. What stands out is that for centuries, India saw nature not as a resource, but as a relative to respect and protect. So environmental conservation in India dates back from pre-agricultural hunting gathering stages. Practices like taboos, totems, sacred groups, and customs help preserve biodiversity. Tribal knowledge includes sustainable farming, ethnomedicine, water conservation, and disaster preparedness. These traditions reinforce the man-environment continuum for centuries. Rapid industrialization, urbanization, and population growth are eroding these practices. Sacred groups and traditional resource management system are declining. So, the major takeaway from this presentation is that a holistic worldview. We need a holistic worldview where ancient Indian philosophy teaches us that human and nature are deeply interconnected. Our survival depends on ecological balance. If we assume that ancient Indian philosophy teaches us that how human and nature are interconnected, then our survival definitely depends upon the ecological balance. So, next is living traditions. The indigenous communities continue to practice eco-friendly traditions like sacred groups, sustainable farming, and water harvesting, which we can relate it to the today's practices like converting the sensitive zone into national parks, bird sanctuaries, or biosphere reserves for their ecological significance. So, indigenous communities continue to practice eco-friendly traditions like sacred groups, sustaining farming, and water harvesting. Modern relevance. These practices align perfectly with today's biodiversity conservation goal, climate resilience strategy, and sustainability policies. So, thus, we can say that reviving and integrating this knowledge with modern science can provide innovative, low cost, and culturally rooted solution for ecological challenges. So, conservation is not a new idea, it is an inheritance we must reclaim. By blending indigenous wisdom with modern science, we can pave the way for a sustainable and biodiverse future. True to the vision of Vasudev Kutumbakam, the world as one family. Before I conclude, I would like to emphasize that conservation is not just a scientific pursuit. It is culturally responsible. It is a cultural responsibility. Our ancestors lived in harmony with nature, guided by values of reverence and restraint. If we can revise this wisdom and blend it with modern science, we can build a sustainable path for future generation. So I look forward. Thank you for your attention, and we need to think about that how how if we promote these indigenous knowledge system or the traditional ecological system, we will be able to conserve our biodiversity. So India's legacy can be conserved too through ecological wisdom that dates back to the Vedic period, and even today these practices holds immense relevance in addressing modern environmental challenges. Through this presentation, we can retain our traditional knowledge, cultural practices, and grassroots movements by shaping them and continue to shape through biodiversity conservation in our country. Thank you.
The participants, the forum is open for the questions. You can unmute yourself and ask questions. Participants, any questions before we close the session for the evening? Ma'am, वैसे you have given a very thoughtful, insight about how the research has been going on in the environment, ecological balances कैसे बने और मतलब कैसे different tribes used to मतलब in the earlier years used to help us in treating and environmental कैसे control करते थे. Ma'am, it was a very good insight in the PPT. मतलब I was very much amazed.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Everything is there in the nature. We need to just follow them.
Yes, ma'am. Anybody else would like to? You can participants. You can unmute yourself and ask the questions. Anybody? Umal ma'am, you were saying something. You want to ask something? You said you had
Madam,
some
one
doubt.
question.
You had some doubt in the earlier session.
Ma'am, I have unmuted myself. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible. Ma'am is also there. You can ask her.
Ma'am, it is, we are now, e-waste is a large amount it is being generated, e-waste.
Yes, electronic waste.
That is polluting the environment. Everybody knows about that. But is there any way to dispose that without polluting our environment? Because a lot of systems and other things, once if we buy a system for 5 years it comes, then the next we are in order to make the software run, we go in for the next system, like that it goes on. E-waste is very high.
Yeah,
That is the very threat to our environment also.
yes,
We don't know how to dispose it also.
Okay. Ma'am, it is that I have talked about the EPR, okay, na extended producer responsibility. So it is the responsibility of the producer, the manufacturer, who is producing that product. Okay, suppose you have bought a phone, okay, iPhone. So it is the responsibility of Apple to take back that product, and it is there. If you read the directions or the whatever the guidelines which is provided, they provide you a full sheet of paper. So there they have mentioned about the EPR. But when we go and buy this product from the seller, they don't tell us about this. So I'll just provide you an insight. So we have bought a LG television, okay, and that television was they tell there is a new technology called OLED. So that makes that works on pixels, and that makes the TV very costly. And at that time when we were buying it, they have suggested that the life of this product will be near about 5 to 10 years, but they have mentioned the 5 year, and exactly after 5 to 6 year, the one day the television stopped working. So when we asked them, they said ki no, this type of thing, that the seller was not aware about that, ki what is EPR. But as I was aware about the EPR, so I asked them ki no, I will be taking that a new TV from you only when you are going to take it back. And there is a certain amount designated, because when we buy that product so they take that amount in the form of EPR, that they will be, when they will be taking back, they will be refunding this amount. Okay, and most of the people are not aware about that. That's why in my previous presentation I have mentioned, I have told about, I have compiled all the acts, all the policies which are there, and which through which we can get benefits, and or we can benefit our environment too. So when you will ask about them, and then when they inquired with the matlab main the buyer, the producer, producer, the LG, then they said ki yes, EPR is there, and then they took back my old television. And because most of the part used, because it was the pictures was not coming, but rest of the part where they can recycle them, and then they took that television, and then further it went for the recycling. So it is the consumers, the consumer has to know their rights, and they have to take a step step that key how this can be recycled. Then only we can minimize these e-waste, because the policies, the e-waste policy, the rules, they have mentioned them that yes, it is going to cause harm and these products are need to be recycled. So most of the things are used there are recyclable. So if it goes to them, so definitely that will be through circular economy it can be used, and it can it can minimize the generation of the e-waste, definitely.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And at the same time, now after Corona, the people have got the awareness regarding protecting this environment. Nowadays, our children and all are asking that, what have you left for us behind?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
those things are coming, and now the awareness is also there, and we are also not going in for always in many of the people, they are not going in for English medicine. They try to take these herbs for small that is a disease which comes at home, like a cold cough and all. They are taking these herbs 2-3 times so that it gets stopped. So the awareness has come, but till we have to see to it that they are all being protected.
Yeah, definitely, ma'am. And through these FDPs and all, we are there to provide the insights so that it is spreaded to each and every people, and they are aware about even their rights, and also about these traditional practices, ecological practices, which are going to help a lot. Thank you for your question, ma'am. Anybody else? Yes.
And we have one more question in the chat box by Dr. Ramachandran. Ma'am, he is
Okay.
asking what methodologies are most effective in documenting and validating indigenous ecological knowledge while respecting its oral and experiential nature.
The validating for validating and keeping it preserved, I think the research is lots of research is going on. Okay, so through that, if but the thing is that the original scriptures which are present in the various knowledge, so we don't have that much of expertise to read them. So if we are going to decode these things now, which in if we check out for our traditional ecological knowledge, these ecological knowledge which are the scriptures which are presently in Palis and other Indian languages, which for them we lack the people who are basically have the knowledge of these yeah, so lots of research is going in Oxford University, and they are decoding these things and they are getting patent on these things. So we need to get these things, experts people, we need to find these expert people who can decode these scriptures or the write-ups which are present there, and if it is translated in the languages which we are aware of, so definitely we can document them, and that will be the part of our Indian knowledge system, and it will be retained by us.
Okay, ma'am. And Dr. Babu is writing, Madam, your session was next level motivating in the chat box. And he's also saying, while predating the Chipko, the Bishnoi community has 500-year-old history of protecting trees and wildlife. So, well, he wants to say that since the history also says that we have been into protecting of trees and wildlife, which we have forgotten nowadays. So we should also ensure that in the coming future this happens, so that our generations are able to have a good environment, I suppose.
Yes, definitely. That's why I mentioned the Vishnoy movement. So this movement was in 1800, yeah, and now also we talk about 1830. Amrita Devi has initiated this movement,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
we can just know that how visionary she was. That at that time the thing was that women used to go and fetch water from distant places, the Bawdis and all, and these khesri trees used to retain water, and if these khesri trees were there, the wells did not dried up. And this was the movement. Just to now we consider it as a movement for as an environmental movement, but that was for their safeguard, that they knew that if these trees are not there, we have to go to distant places in that matlab sun and all in summers, and have to fetch water. So they had fought for their rights, and definitely for the environmental.
Yes, ma'am, very truly said by you. Anybody else among the participants would like to ask any of the questions? Any examples for better explanations? वैसे ma'am has given sufficient good examples to explain the concept in a very short and precise manner to us within the span of 1.5 hours. 1 hours. Anybody else? Any questions? Anybody like to say about, if you would like to give the feedback, you can unmute yourself and say. Before we close on the session for the evening.
Very nice presentation, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anybody else like to say? Ma'am, there is another question in the chat box. How, by Dr. Ramachandran himself, how can national education policy integrate indigenous knowledge systems into mainstream curricula to promote sustainable practices?
Yeah, very good question, ma'am. So NEP is taking a very good initiative for this IKS, Indigenous Knowledge System. And in the once we just adopt fully, the NEP is fully adopted, so this indigenous knowledge system is going to become a mandatory course, ma'am, in our education system, just like the environmental science. As all the students, whether from undergraduate, postgraduate, they need to study environmental science. So they are very much aware nowadays, they are very much aware about that through this mandatory course. So same is going to happen with this IKS also. So at present they are providing the training to the people, and very क्या कहते हैं, near in the future it is going to be implemented. It will be the part of our curriculum.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Ma'am, one thing I would like to ask that how we can inculcate among the students as being the educators into the industry about this particular thing, matlab indigenous knowledge systems, or how they should help matlab in the proper maintenance of the environment. Ma'am, how can we do either with the help of some video lectures or some case studies also?
Yes,
Would
the
you like
case
to say?
studies should be practiced, ma'am. The students should be given some projects, the research work, so we can tell them about the different topics, whatever. We can very much correlate this indigenous knowledge system with the subject which we are teaching. Presently, I have to speak for the environment, so I have to. It main of the ecological practices has been taken, but you can correlate with any of the engineering subject, any of the any subject you can consider it, and you can give them the small projects, ma'am. Okay, and in that projects they will research, and when they are researching, definitely many things they are going to explore, and they will come out with these things. So I can tell you when I was in Delhi University, I have given very small projects to these students, and they have come out with a very good research. So this is the thing that we can make them aware about the indigenous knowledge system, and it was so much interesting to them when I was taking the representation. They came out, yes ma'am, we were not aware about that. This is in our system. This was in our system. This was in our system. So they have explored. They have come out with a very good research. So we can do like this, that they can learn from this. And the learning, the research,
Yes, ma'am.
and NEP 2020 promotes
Yes, ma'am.
research also, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, and moreover, if I talk about we belonging to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, Delhi, so there we have the new syllabus, new curriculum has the subjects like environmental studies, wherein they study about the basics and also they have some case studies. So in that particular manner, we can give them some projects as you're talking about, so that they can become more closer to the environment and assess them and have
Yes,
their.
ma'am. Definitely in the live project, you can tell that one of the project, जैसे कि for अभी landfills are becoming a very big problem. So they can visit the landfills, and after visiting and after researching, they'll come out with a very good solution. So the live example can be a very good example to make them aware about the present situation which they are facing presently.
Yes, ma'am. This is one way we can inculcate among them because they are young brains, young minds, which will help us do better and achieve better for the future.
Yes, definitely.
Anybody else would like to ask something? Okay, ma'am. I will conclude by saying Mr. Franklin D. Roosevelt rightly said, a nation that destroys its soils destroys itself. Forests are the lungs of our land, purifying the air and giving fresh strength to our people. On this note, I would like to thank you, ma'am, for such a nice session that we had related to environmental knowledge, the indigenous knowledge systems, so that it will help us and we will also help our students educate about the same and help protect our environment together, as which is one of the requirement under just sustainable development. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time, and thank you so much for your information that you have given us. And so we as educators can impart the same among our students also. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, and hope to have more sessions with you on such areas.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
And thank you all the participants for being patient listeners. And it was day 4 for us today. So we can say a big thank you and thank you for attending the same, and hope you are satisfied with the technical support that we are providing. Thank you so much, and see you tomorrow for the concluding session tomorrow.
Ma'am, tomorrow's test, whether it will be through Atal portal or through Google Forms, ma'am, because last week I attended one FDP and the Atal portal was not at all responsive. During that period, only 1 hour, all colleges and all the participants will be logging in. There are many FDPs.
Ma'am, the certificates will be uploaded through the portal. The rest I will update you once on the WhatsApp group in the morning itself.
Okay, about the test alone, test only I am asking, madam. The other things are okay. Test during for 1 hour means if you are giving it through your own Google Sheet, then it will be easier for us to
Okay,
answer
ma'am.
it.
We'll try to provide you some Google form or so that it is easy for you guys to attempt. Rest, I will confirm from the coordinator tomorrow morning, and we'll update you accordingly on the group.
Okay, this is
And
the
the
problem
PPT
last
is
week. That
already
is why.
shared, sir, as I'm receiving in the chat box by our ma'am. In case it is not, you are unable to see, we will be providing you. Then Vidhav sir, you are saying certificates can we get through WhatsApp group if possible? Sir, it is an Atal FDP. To Atal FDP, once it gets over and it analyzes your attendance also 80% and your 50% score regarding this on your based on your test. So the certificate is automatically generated to Atal portal. We cannot help provide you certificates, sir. Sorry on that part. Anything else you guys have to ask? Thank you so much. Wishing you all a very good night. So test timing will be in the evening from 6 p.m. onwards. The afternoon sessions will be the sessions by the speakers from outside India, that is Dubai. We have 2 speakers from there tomorrow afternoon, and after that we will have a break, and this will be followed by the valedictory and the test and the valedictory. Hope to see you guys tomorrow. A very good night to all of you. Thank you so much for attending, and thank you so much for being patient listeners. Thank you.